I realized that I had started another meeting before I started this one that I invited you to. And then when I went back and thought that I was just waiting for you to join, I was just sitting in that other meeting all by myself. Yeah, it's doing the thing where it shares audio. Let's just make sure we are recording separate audio file for each participant. Cool. Now,
the name.
Oh, yes, I am still my wife. Correct. We might as well turn this into a properly professional app. Now let's try the next part and see if we can move it a step forward and share my screen.
There it goes.
As I said, while we discuss all things woods, we have some footage that we've taken in the woods. This particular episode will be a kayak trip my wife and I did on the San Marcos River last summer. This is a primarily Central Texas-based podcast. We're both based in, I don't know, do you people in Cedar Park consider yourselves Austin-based?
Yeah, I mean, I do. But yeah, no, I'm not from Cedar Park. I'm from Austin. It's just easier to explain it to people, but
there are many parks with many cedars, but this one is mine. There's not that many cedars around you, though, I tend to notice. They get more towards Lakeway. You guys get the more cedar.
Yeah, if you go up like 360 and 620 and stuff, some of that underdeveloped area is mostly cedar scrub.
Right.
You know.
As I said, this is very rare footage, so we can dip back in and out of some of it's very long still shots like this. Some of it's a bit more action packed.
Is this straight footage or is this looped?
It's about 34 minutes of raw footage that I put together. And then I was just gonna, if we're still feeling like we want to talk with more things behind us, we'll just play it.
Got it.
It's fine. But yeah, like some of the photos, I've just got them running for about 30 seconds. And then some of the footage, I just put the phone down while we were stopped at different places just to film background B-roll.
Makes sense.
My wife actually got me a GoPro for my birthday in October, and I have yet to put an SD card in it because we had a baby. So I am, I barely leave the house now. We're going to probably have a drink or two while we talk about things in the woods. What are you drinking, Will?
So we had friends over last night and we made margaritas and there was some left over. So I put them into ice cube trays. That were Texas LongHorn molds, of course. And so I put those into a cup and then I put a Topo Chico lime on top of that. And it's pretty good. I don't know what to call it. I mean, it's essentially a margarita, but
so close to being cool. And then it had the LongHorn ice cube tray. Losers.
Fine.
I was watching a movie the other day called actually it was about making a podcast too. It's about a guy from New York, the guy from The Office, the intern guy. I forget his name. He wrote
BJ Novak. BJ Novak.
BJ Novak, yeah, he wrote and directed it as well. And it's about a New Yorker who comes to Texas to make a podcast about a girl.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
It's a good film. It's a little rough on the Texans, but I kind of like it. And it's in West Texas, but he's at the rodeo and the guy says, all right, everyone give a cheer, everyone who barracks for the University of Texas. And he jumps up, woo! And then everyone else is dead silent at the rodeo. It's like, and everyone who supports Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Like, oh, damn. he forgot that Texas has more than one university. I thought it was pretty cute. It's not a bad little film, actually. Oh, some of these still shots are supposed to run for 30 seconds, but they got a little, I might have forgot to extend some of them. As I said, this is completely raw footage. I haven't doctored this at all. So a lot of it is me with my phone strapped to my chest, just drinking beer. Pulling it back to stop it on this next still shot because I thought my wife did a good job of this one and I look cool. But yeah, we floated San Marcos River last August when there'd been some rain, so there was just enough water. It was a little shallow in places, but it was nice.
Yeah, we've been there, we've done like tube floats or whatever in and around the area. And there's usually not too much like portage and stuff. It's really good for fishing. I know that it's supposed to be great for
Oh yeah,
fishing.
there were fish everywhere. I didn't do any fishing this day. We just floated.
Mm-hmm.
Sabrina was, I guess if it was August, she was 4 months pregnant, going on 4 months pregnant. So that's a pretty good shot though. Kayak outlaw.
Mm-hmm.
So we are going to hit some regular segments. I think segments will come and go. I think we'll find ones that work and ones that don't work, talking about different outdoors activities and different things. I do want to touch on a few updates in terms of like Texas governmental news when it comes to public lands and wild places.
Yeah.
We can touch into that a little bit later. But I think a good way to start this podcast, since our whole idea is that it's going to force us to talk more and do more in the woods. Will, where in the woods have you been lately?
I mean, mainly the last 3 weekends I've been at my parents' place, which is technically in the woods. There's a great deal of it's about 30 acres, but there's some you know, what would you call it? Just uncleared forest, I guess. And then but so that's a cool relaxing place for me, even though you know it's not a park or anything else like that, but it's a cool place where I can feel relaxed and sort of that the sounds of silence, I guess, the sounds that the woods make. So recently it's been a while since I've been able to get out to go camping or
I like that. I like it. I love your parents' place. It's one of my favorite things about being friends with you, among many.
Mm-hmm.
I think probably a decent option, especially because we are now kind of blocking. I'm going to be moving us around because we're blocking kind of the focal point of that picture. I'm going to find where to keep us in this, and eventually there'll be teething. Since I come from a place, I nearly just said a land down under, that would have been messed up. I come from a place a long, long way away, and you come from here. And even within America, I know there are terms and differences in vernacular and dialect of how to describe places. So I think it might be worth defining what do we mean by the woods. It was a good point made with your parents' property, because it's not you wouldn't call it a farm, but it's a piece of land. There is a tractor. There are sections that are fenced off, but it is relatively wild.
Yeah.
How would you define the woods? What would you like?
I would say just like any place you can go where there's, say, like a trail and you're surrounded by trees. So if you're walking, there doesn't have to be a trail, obviously, but if you're walking and there's trees that are giving a canopy and you're kind of in it, then that to me is like the woods. But it can also be more broad and generalized and just be meaning, you're just on a trail somewhere, or you're along the boundary walking along the side of a river or something like that. That to me is the same. Just being in proximity to trees, basically, and kind of being in and among them. That to me is what you're saying. It doesn't have to be, like I said, a big stretch of undisturbed forest or anything else like that. It can just be a trail, even in like downtown Austin. There's Peace Park and there's a trail that goes around it, and that to me is still in the woods, even though you're kind of still in the city and everything else.
That's sort of what I was getting at with the question, was like, where do you define the woods? And I think it could be almost as much a feeling you get when you're in there.
Mm-hmm.
When you're amongst that environment, like you said, that sounds of silence or that peace that you can get where you feel you just get, it doesn't even have to be overly remote, but you feel like you're away from human civilization
Yeah.
a little bit, or you're in an area that's basically wild,
Yeah.
minimally affected by humans. I have a tiny little like micro forest about a mile from my house that I walk the dogs to. But once you
Mm-hmm.
go into it, it's like, yeah, I'm in the woods.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the same. It counts.
Coming from
Yeah.
Australia, obviously, I mean, we say the bush.
The bush. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Which
think
is
Canada
it's a
says
better
the bush as
descriptor,
well.
but
Well, it's not. I think the woods is better. The woods at least is plural. The bush is just like, I was in the bush. It was like, well, who helped you out? Why did you fall in?
mm-hmm.
Was it a TikTok video? But
I
yeah,
don't think we
I mean,
call
when you say I'm going to the bush, it's just I'm going. We would say where I come from, we'd say I'm going out the bush.
out the
Going
bush.
out the
Okay.
bush, that means I'm going camping, or I'm at
Yeah.
least going for a drive out there, a stubby drive.
Mm-hmm.
Generally,
Mm-hmm.
because it's generally a place where the cops won't be, so you can have a few tins while you're cruising out through the bush. Without incriminating anybody, my dad and a bunch of his mates have made big traditions out of uh, doing stubby drives through the bush, which is state forest. That's about 15 minutes from where I grew up. So I didn't necessarily have.
I just assumed you were required to have an open container if you were driving in Australia. I thought that was like a thing. Like, hey, sir, do you have a beer, open beer? Like, of course not. All right, well, I'm gonna have to write you a ticket then.
There is a famous story of a man who his last stubby drive. My dad and his mates took him from his funeral in the urn on the dashboard of the car through the bush for one last stubby drive. And he
Mm-hmm.
once was on a houseboat out in the woods. His name was Murray Hando, and he was sort of a pseudo second dad to me. He was my dad's best mate, and he was a great man, English teacher, filthy mouth, loved all things comedy, Monty Python, loved everything, and he loved all of the ridiculous, surreal parts of life, but was also one of those great drunks. And he famously was on a houseboat where they ran out of whiskey, and so they had to come in from the bush, which is basically to run errands, get more beer, and get ice. And of
Yeah,
course, they got in, and about 3 blocks from the pub, here's the cops, here's the smokies, and they're breathalyzing everybody as they do in Australia with their little handheld breathalyzer. And the cop Murray blows in the thing. His mate in the passenger seat pisses off into the pub and won't come out. Murray blows into the thing, and the cop says, "Well, you're booked, mate. I got you." And Murray says, "No, I'm not." He says, "No." Well, he shows him the reading. He says, "No, you're over. You're about, you're about 0.05 would be the limit." And he's probably 0.07, 0.08. He's been drinking whiskey. And Murray says, "Well, look, mate, I know I'm on my way down. We ran out of whiskey a while ago. That's why we're here. And to book me properly, you're going to have to either drive me to Shepparton or Echuca, the two bigger towns that are about equidistance away of about 45 minutes drive. By the time we get there, I'm going to blow in the big machine. I'm going to be under the limit, and you're going to have to drive me back again and listen to me tell you about it the whole way back." And the cop grumble, 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 get the fuck out of here. Murray went into the pub, bought a few slabs, waved to the cop on his way back out the bush, and went back out to the house. And that was Murray
yeah.
to a T. Was the cop tells him one thing, and he just says, "No, I'm not." He's a good man. I'll drink one to Murray. He taught me a lot about bushcraft. But
Yeah.
yeah, so we would say the bush, and our bush was state park, which was state forest when I grew up. It's now national park, which has a lot stricter rules on it. But
Yeah.
state forest where I grew up, you could go shooting, you could have your dogs out there off leash, you could have fires as long as there wasn't a total fire ban, all of that kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
and you didn't have to pay to go in. State national park in Australia, you can't have dogs off leash, you can't shoot in it. You can only have fires in designated areas. You can't remove firewood. Whereas
Yeah.
there were guys that when I was growing up, their whole job was like timber cutting and going and
Yeah. Getting firewood.
getting
Can
redwood.
you use there's plenty of like state parks here. It's really weird, or at least I think it's kind of weird. They don't they don't want people to like collect firewood. So say if you're going in, you have a reservation somewhere, you go in, you're supposed to bring the majority of your firewood with you, which understandable. But I think that, a little bit of collection of whatever's dead and down is more of a service than anything else, because then you're removing a bunch of additional tender if there's any issues with like, you know, wildfire or anything else like that, which is always going to be an issue from now on, obviously.
Yep.
But like, always thought it was weird. Just like, just let us collect what's like on the ground. Don't break off anything or anything like that.
Don't cut down anything living, but if it's dead, why not?
Yeah.
Also, that creates problems too. I know I went to a couple of places in Oklahoma the last couple of years, and they say, please don't bring your own wood, because they mostly get people coming from a fair way away, which will bring parasites into the area with the wood they bring that might not already live there. They want you to use
I didn't even,
because the local wood only has the local parasites.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
I don't know. I've discovered so much in America that just is the evidence of when you have 330 million motherfuckers.
Yeah.
When you've got this many of us crawling around the joint, you have to limit people doing stuff, because if everyone does just what is reasonable each, then it's an overwhelming effect on the ecosystem. Whereas in Australia, there's a lot of just like, no, we haven't even thought of that because we don't have enough people for it to matter.
Yeah, true. That's a good point. Yeah, it's a different. I think like if you talk about similarities with regard to like size, like America is a huge landmass, Australia is a huge landmass, but I mean, I don't know what they are comparably, like size wise.
44,000 square miles bigger is the lower 48 of the US.
Okay. All right. So
just a little bit bigger than Australia. We just only have 1/10.
Yeah, a little bit bigger. So really comparable size then.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much exactly comparable.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There's no Midwest. It's just
But like, but there's so many more people crammed into it here.
Yeah.
And there's a large section of, Australia, if you just draw kind of an oval in the middle part of it, where it's, not that it's completely and nothing is there, but it's very lowly populated.
It's Mad Max.
Yeah.
It's like there's only tiny pockets. Basically, I think everyone in Australia lives in about 8% of the landmass or something.
Yeah.
Like, it's a ridiculous. Like, we are a crust around the coast, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. Which I mean, out of necessity.
Only really 3 out of the 4 coasts as well. The North Coast, really, there's not many people that live up there. There's one city where it's like if you moved. Darwin is like if you moved. Someone was asking me about Darwin the other day, and I said it's like Juneau, Alaska, if it was like Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
It's Tampa Bay if you moved it to Juneau. So all the people running away from something still go there, but it's tropical heat and redness.
Got it. Yeah.
Snakes and lizards.
Makes sense.
And Darwin's one of my favorite places in Australia, but that's Crocodile Dundee territory. That's what that looks like. What they filmed that just south of Darwin in Kakadu National Park.
Yeah,
so that's nothing like where I grew up. Where I grew up is a little bit similar to Austin with muddier rivers.
Yeah.
Just dark brown rivers instead of nice green and blue. I really like the rivers here. When there's water in them, I really like.
Well, particularly the San Marcos is known for having a distinct sort of like bluish hue and clearness to it. That's pretty neat.
Really pretty, yeah. This section was, I don't want to blow up my spot too much because it was nicely uninhabited at the time, even in summer. But it sort of runs down to a dam, so you can do a float down to where you can park a car.
Yeah.
The guy at the property where we parked our caravan, what did he do? He drove us to drop our car off. That's right. He drove with us to drop our car off and then drove us back in his car. So that when we finished the float, we just put the boats on the car and drove back up.
Sweet.
It was about a 6-hour float. I think I got 34 minutes of decent footage out of it. This was iPhones in cigarette holders too, like in the little things you wear around your neck.
Yeah.
I since have got a GoPro, which I will start using, but I've got to get an SD.
A real harness or like mounted or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, eventually I'd like to have a couple.
Yeah, for sure.
Just to make things like
Yeah,
this.
I really want to do that. It's been a while since I've been able to go fishing, or like, I mean, for when I say a while, for me, that's like more than like, a month, a month and a half.
Yeah,
But yeah, I've been really looking forward to doing something like this, and like, but having a fishing element to it, maybe a camping element to it. I mean, I know we've discussed doing a trip like down the Colorado River. There's this very cool like water race type thing where people go all the way from here all the way down to the coast on the Colorado, which is really neat.
I would love to. I would absolutely love to. Right now, I'd settle for doing the lower Colorado, like just going from here to Columbus or somewhere. Like
Mhm.
I really like Columbus around there. I've gone fishing and stuff around there where the Colorado runs through, and I think it's
Mhm.
pretty through there too. And it's like just a good enough size to where you'd be able to run it, and it's moving fast enough, but it's not unmanageable. If anything happens, you could just beach wherever you needed to or bank wherever you needed to.
Yeah.
Love to do it. I keep saying I'm going to do it, and then eventually the baby came and I didn't yet. So we'll see. I'm going to pour myself a little bit more drink. I've got this. I worked for a lady. I moved a downspout on her gutter the other day, and she gave me a bottle of Japanese scotch.
Japanese Scotch,
Well,
interesting.
Japanese blended whiskey, but it tastes like scotch.
Mm.
It's quite good. So I got it mixed into a Gold Rush,
Mm.
some honey and some lemon and bitters. Usually you use a bourbon in a Gold Rush and it makes it a very gold color. The Japanese makes it quite a
Yeah, kind of opaque, clear.
delicious though, and I'm getting a nice buzz from it. Let me see what else we were gonna. I was thinking we could discuss and start to talk about. Obviously, we'll start to get some more defined uh, categories or defined segments on a
Segments, yeah.
podcast as we go. For right now, we just have general stuff we can talk shit about the woods because that's our first bit. We don't have to direct it too much.
Mhm.
Um, coming from that, so we've sort of discussed, we've defined the woods essentially of what it means. It's sort of wild areas or natural areas where things are just let go and you can get in there and
Yeah.
be away from human effects on things. Although in America, I have found it's hard to get away from trash no matter where you go.
Yeah.
Um, it's
Pretty
something
gross.
I tend to notice. I feel like you notice more when you find an area with no trash. That your eyes tend to filter the trash out now because you see them so much. You see it so much.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I appreciate the sort of urban planning where they get trails and stuff like that, and green areas throughout the city and things like that. But whenever that happens, I mean, you're just going to have more trash, especially in areas like that. When you're on the road and you're driving and you're seeing it, that's very obnoxious. But then obviously when you're, on a trail anywhere, you see trash, it just sucks. Or in the river, in your instance.
Especially around Austin, where because Austin's such a flash flood town, after a
Mhm.
decent sized rain where the rivers have run, then you just see it all just piled up against the logs and against the snags, and just how much has been washed into areas,
Yeah.
which is always pretty confronting. And that's when you just really remember, oh yeah, there's 330 million motherfuckers.
Yeah.
It's like
And a lot of them.
Australia are no better at trashing, at collecting their litter. Than we're no better at prosecuting it. We're no better at having rules about it or having an ethics about it. There's just less of us,
Yeah,
so
true.
you don't notice it as much.
Yeah, less total amount. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think we could probably abolish prisons and just have people pick up trash.
I mean, that's a good idea. They make them do it sometimes anyways, or they make community service people do it anyway. So, I
Yeah,
mean,
community
really is
service
no
pick up
excuse.
trash. It's just like let's just have that as everything. Like that was the. I think that used to be the punishment when I was in elementary school.
Pick up trash.
You have to spend your recess and your lunchtime picking up. They called it picking up papers. You got to be picking up papers all around the school. For your entire recess, that was how you did your penance. I was just like, you could probably do that just in the world. That could just be the punishment.
Yeah. Yeah, if you fuck up, you gotta spend a certain amount of time doing it.
Just clean shit.
Yeah.
Um, there's an entire conversation about for-profit prisons and things that we could plug in there, but maybe we'll keep that for more.
Mhm.
Um, we don't want to get too political on this podcast, although I will have more. I want to bring some research to the table and stuff, but I have had a baby and I haven't done a lot for this first one. Although I did see one piece of legislative news lately. Do you have anything recently that you've seen, Will, that the
Not specific, but this stretch of time in Texas. It's a session year. It's an odd year, so that means that the House and the Texas House and Senate are in session for the biennial session. So there will be bills that have to do with, some things,
something I would like to do with
something related to state parks and things like that. The only other thing I heard recently is that there was I think it's Fairfield State Park, I believe. It had been leased from a private landowner or something like that, and he's calling in the lease and then selling to a private property. So essentially, they're losing an entire state park, just because it's gonna be sold to a developer, whatever else it is. So I thought that was kind of shitty and sort of like the opposite of what is supposed to happen. I do know that there's a brand new state park opening up, or a couple of brand new ones. There's one down by the coast that's supposed to be really badass and is a really cool stretch of that sort of coastal marsh, some water, and then a little bit further in and stuff like that. I can't remember what it's going to be called, but it's supposed to be soon. I think within the next year it'll be open.
I haven't heard about that one, but the one I saw that was actually, that's what I thought. I thought, oh, wow, the first segment I have about any new legislation is that we have a new state park for the first time in 25 years in Texas, about 75 miles west of Fort Worth, called the San Pablo Mountains.
Yeah.
It's brand new, and it's at least a few hundred miles. That they're putting away and looking after. So that's, at least that offsets old mate calling in the lease. I guess they don't have a lot of control, I guess, if someone has
it's probably and like I said, I didn't look into the specifics of the park, but I assume it's a smaller place and it was an arrangement with landowner, but it could be sort of,
it was the entire park or whether it was a piece of land as part of the park, and whether
probably
itself just loses a bit.
Yeah. But yeah, I just thought, I was like, man, that sucks. It doesn't seem sort of the route that, especially in Texas, where 90 whatever percent of the land is privately owned. And it's never something you want to go backwards with, because you're only going to lose more and more as we continue to expand population wise.
That is one of the things I wanted to do. One of the reasons I wanted to do this podcast is just to give us a reason to look into things and look up. It's so hard to find public lands in Texas. Like you said, Texas is 93% public owned. It's one of the biggest states in the country.
Private owned.
Sorry, 93% private owned.
Yeah.
Meaning if you don't know the right person, then you don't get to go. Or if you don't pay the right money, then you don't get to go. So it's a lot different from a lot of the other states, especially the ones that talk a lot about outdoor activities. Your Wyomings and your Colorados and stuff, where there is
the big West,
the big West states, and even in the Midwest, there's quite a lot of public land. So it's something I want to try to make sure that everybody that listens to this, at least, maybe they walk away with it knowing that there's a place close to them that turns out they own as a citizen, as a taxpayer. They own that land and they're allowed to use it if they want to, and this is where it is. So maybe as we go forward, let's pick some public lands that maybe people might not know about so much in different areas of Texas, and start talking about them and talk about what's available there and what's available to do on them.
It would be good.
So
it would be good
we learn them.
To highlight either a specific one or work our way through different regions, because one of the parts about Texas being so massive is that there's a wide range of different ecosystems and all sorts of cool shit. Going from, it's why it's one of the things, like when you're driving across it, you're like, fuck, this place is gigantic. But that lends itself to having a whole diversified sort of because you go to West Texas and it's mountains. I mean, the mountains that we call mountains in Texas. I mean, I know they're not the same as like the Rocky Mountains or anything else like that, but they're still mountains. And there's
It's
just some really
big rock
crazy,
formations and
yeah,
chasms and stuff.
yeah, and canyons and things like that. There's some really
It
just sort of
undulates, motherfucker. It undulates.
yeah, and then you go into the plains or like the East Texas, the piney woods, and then the coastline is like this huge long stretch of coastline that changes even from where it is. So yeah, there's all sorts of different things to like for whatever you're into, I guess it is. I mean, I've never really prescribed to being like, well, I like this type of ecosystem. I just think it's all cool. I want to check it all out. But
No,
like if you're,
that's it.
oh, well, I like,
I'm holding you to it. Rate them. Rate. Let's rate your top 5 Texas ecosystems. Go.
I mean, I really like West Texas, especially we did the Big Bend thing, and that's really sort of a I mean, it's a desert essentially. It's I believe it's officially the part of the Chihuahuan Desert, and it's like a different sort of I don't know. It has a different vibe than being in the woods, and there's different animals. It's a different. You have to do different things when you're there in order to camp properly and stuff like that. You have to watch out for different things. It's challenging in different ways. Um, what else?
When were you there? When were you in Big Bend?
We did. I think I went with Eric, my buddy Eric, in 2014, I think it was. Okay. And so we just drove and went
like late 20s boys trip kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah. And so you have the option to do, primitive camping, backcountry camping, where you can just drive your car down a bumpy ass road for 2 hours and end up. And to me, one of the event, like what I'm looking to do when I go camping is to just get away from people. And we didn't see a single soul for 4 days or whatever it was. That to me is what it's sort of about. And I wish there were more opportunities to do that. But yeah, if you like the water, then like I also love the coast. Like, I mean, I know that we don't also have
Street, like 36th Street at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday. I think you can pretty much avoid it.
Yeah. But like, I love the coast. It's very, relaxing to be there. There's lots of, recreational opportunities depending on what you want to do. Like, obviously, you and me are very into fishing, and I really would love to get down there at any time. Really, you can fish anytime on the Texas coast, which makes it fucking awesome. But
I really like standing on the in those little waves that the Gulf has, and just with a huge big anchor sinker and just firing it out as far as you can, and then just walking back to your beer on the beach and sitting.
Yeah. That to me is a sort of, not, I won't say a rite of passage, but like you should, if you haven't done it, then, and you go to the coast, that's something that you should do. Just sit and do that, especially going down to like the National Seashore. That's a really, really cool.
Yeah, say North Padre Island is one of my favorite places I've been in the States, in America. Yeah. In general, it's a wonderful spot. The fact that you can just drive on the beach until you can't see any people, and then just park on that spot, and people will keep going past you till they can't see you.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's just your spot. It was fantastic. I like that a lot.
Yeah. So there's just a lot to get into, and I really believe if you don't, like, to me, it's inside of me. So I have to go and do these. I have to go outside at some point and do it. You're the same way, sort of. You have to do, even if it's just a daily thing. But if you like the beach, if you like the woods, if you like, mountains, or, the, scrub lands or whatever else it is, then you have your pick of, whatever you want here, which is a very cool thing. But yeah, I think if we were to go through them and check them out, and like, or go through each region and find sort of maybe some of the lesser known parks too, that could use a little bit of a spotlight on them, because they may be sort of out of the way and don't get as much, because like Big Bend is actually low on the list of, I think, overall like visitors each year just because it's pretty remote and it's very hot sometimes, like a lot of the time. Like we were there when we went, it was November and it was still, got up into like about 90 degrees, the hottest part of the day.
November, yeah, well.
But yeah, I think that's good. That's probably a good way to structure at least one break, or one part of it would be to actually have an opportunity. We ahead of time pick out, whatever it is, or we each pick one
Yeah,
and do it.
I think let's do that. Let's set each other the challenge for the next episode. Is let's bring me, like, teach me about a Texas public land, a piece of Texas public land. Pick anyone you like. Find out. Let's find out a little bit of the history of it, or like teach me where it is and what I can do there.
Yeah.
Let's share those, and we'll check. We have to agree not to look it up after the other person has told us, but tell me which one you picked so we don't end up picking the same one.
Yeah.
I've written that down as like public access in Texas, one per episode. I think that's a good challenge. I think I'd also like to challenge each other to come with something. This is my camp chair. Look at my camp chair. How disco is it? That was supposed to run for 30 seconds, that clip. I don't understand why that happened.
You got through the roll though.
I killed the camp chair when we got back from the float that night. I killed my camp chair, so I went to the nearest Dollar Tree in San Marcos, and that was the only thing they had. I mean, honestly, is it not the best camp chair you've ever seen?
Yeah.
I cooked it nicely.
For some reason, it looks highly flammable to me.
Unbelievably flammable. In fact, it'd be one of those things that would melt to your skin. I believe it really feels like it would. It's quite soft. It's all made of polyester, like polyester fur.
Yeah.
100% just stick to you and never let go.
Yeah. That man looks like he's got cotton candy on his ass.
Oh my God, I saw cotton candy Bigfoot, I swear.
He was hollering and screaming. I think he was on fire.
I was wondering when we'd get to the ridiculous part. I thought maybe we could I'm going to start this movie again just so there's something in the background. I don't know how to loop it yet because I'm an idiot with computers. I thought another concept that I want to bring is a segment called I've Got a Mate. Because back home I've got some mates and they've got some stories. So I thought we'll get hold of one of my mates every now and then and get them to bring us a tale from the bush.
Yeah, that's good.
Because in Australia, I mean, I'm sure it's the same in Texas too, but in Australia, especially when you're high school age or a young bloke, the bush is where you go because there's no supervision.
Yeah, there's no
bush is where you go because the cops probably won't bother you.
Well, I mean, it's the same. I mean, it's not the same, but like when I was in high school or whatever, when I was into my getting into shit age or whatever, like we lived out, in the country or whatever, where there's no, especially where my parents live, which is sort of even outside this little small town, like there's nobody there. There's no police presence. There's no anything. So you just go and play in the woods and drive around the back roads and get into, because you know that there's no one there watching you.
No, exactly.
So you're more likely to be more uninhibited and have a blast.
And for some reason, because it's an outdoor activity, like camping with your mates seemed to be something that your parents were like, oh, okay, that's kind of wholesome. That's fine. And you're just doing it so that you could get absolutely.
Yeah, you can do all
shit rolling drunk and try drugs for the first time.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
In a place that's as far as possible from medical help if anything goes wrong. And it always did. So I've got some mates and we'll have a segment called I've Got a Mate and we'll have a chat to some of the boys and girls and see what they can come up with some of their craziest woods and antics. And if you've got some Texas boys as well, I think we could bring it in and see what they think. I also think it might be worthwhile getting some people on. We have both dealt with people from around the US and some of them have never been camping. Some of them are from really urban areas. Some of them are from big cities, New Jersey, San Francisco, where their experience of the woods would be, or outdoor activities would be completely different. So I think it would be worthwhile tapping into that too. And maybe we might be able to show them some elements of the Texas outdoors that they might not have realized they could utilize.
Yeah.
Up till now. But for now, we've been running for about half an hour. Maybe let's dive into something a little bit deeper. I've just had a baby. I have a 5-week-old who's asleep just on the other side of that wall. And
Keep it down.
no, he doesn't react to anything. He's fantastic. We have people ring the doorbell. The dogs go nuts right next to him on the couch, and he doesn't even flinch. We had the roofers repairing the roof yesterday. Didn't even flinch. The entire nothing seems to phase him except if he's hungry. If he's hungry, he will not stop screaming. But if he's full, he will be asleep and does not bother about anything. So I thought, let's talk about kids in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
You yourself have your 2 wonderful girls.
Yep.
And I'm looking forward to, more than anything as a father, I think I'm looking forward to taking my son in the woods.
Yeah. Well, it's always, when you have something that like you enjoy, it's always fun to like share it with other people, no matter who it is, really. But when it's your kids, it feels like you're sort of like teaching lessons, but also like having a good time while you do it, which is fucking sweet. But with, it's, to me, it's sort of a fundamental type part of what everybody should be doing, which is to take time throughout your pretty regular, a somewhat routine part of your life to be disconnected from all of the stuff that's that you have to do. Obviously, you have to go to school, you have to work and eat and go through all the motions and everything else, but to be deliberate about seeking time away in a natural environment, away from, I'm not talking about going out and getting a few drinks or going to the bars or hanging out with friends at their house or whatever. That is very fun and enjoyable and stuff like that. But I mean more finding a little bit of quiet and, just looking around and appreciating sort of even the most basic thing. So like my eldest daughter, she loves looking at, bugs, and she loves like fishing and stuff like that. So it's not like I can take her on camping trips every single weekend or every single day, but we can go to the local pond and we can catch fish, and you see something like that. You can go on like a quick little hike just on a local trail or whatever else it is. But when you start them young, they have the appreciation earlier, and it becomes a sort of a regular routine part of their life. So I see it as more like of an imperative, like this is what you should do if you're a parent type of deal. But I think it goes sort of beyond that. And it's more, we should always encourage each other to do it because it's better for your health. Honestly, I know that I have, blood pressure issues sometimes, and I just always feel better afterwards. Like
you're ready.
Yeah. I worked all day today at the farm. We worked probably a solid, really hard 3 hours of just moving brush and everything. But I felt great afterwards because it was very relaxing. It was nice being outside. It was hard work, but you're in the woods. What else can really go, be bad about that?
No, absolutely. What's your favorite thing that you and Caroline's a bit older, so it's probably we'll start with it. What's your favorite thing that you and Caroline have done in the woods? What's your favorite story of her in the woods?
Well, I mean, every time we go to the farm, we walk throughout, and she wants to do it and go and walk around in the woods, which is nice because she appreciates it and just looks around. Just today we were there and we found this old this, I think it was it's like the pelvis of an armadillo or something super fucking metal like that. But she's like, oh, there's something over there, and it was a bone. She's like, gnarly, let's go find some more bones.
Bring up that photo that you see.
Yeah. So then we went and looked at some more, and you had seen it when you came out with me when we were out there setting up for hunting season. And there's like a spinal cord of a deer that had gone down or whatever, and I knew to walk her over there, and so she found that, and she thought it was super cool. But I mean, she's really into fishing. She likes that a lot, and that's something we can do pretty easily. That's fun and is outdoorsy and gets you away from people and away from, the screens and all that type of stuff. But she asked me recently to take her camping, just me and her, which we haven't done yet, really. I mean, I've taken her, but we were with friends and stuff like that. So I think we're looking to do that soon. So that'll probably, be, a really enjoyable thing because it'll just be me and her. So got to figure out where we're going to go and all that type of stuff. But that's part of the fun part too, and teaching them how to prepare and plan for like camping trips and stuff like that. Especially when they get older and they can be, really involved in the entire process.
Yeah, I can't. My Google Photos online apparently is a month behind, so I can't show that photo. But it's a fantastic photo. We'll get it up for the next video. If we come up with a thumbnail, maybe it could be the thumbnail of kids. I have a short section of this video that Sabrina filmed while we're on Kids in the Woods. While, as I said, she was 4 months pregnant on this float. Oh, crap! There we go. That ridiculous human specimen. Let me see if I can cue it up with some sound. Oh, where did it go? Did I just ruin it again? I'll turn the sound.
Just keep lingering on that shirtless shot of you for some reason.
Honestly, it's the best. That's a 4 month pregnant body right there. So it's this clip here that I want to turn on the sound. 400%. That's a bit much. Let's come. Why is that even a thing? That's some Spinal Tap shit right there. All right, let's see. Let me know if you can hear this.
It's probably gonna be crazy loud.
Baby's first river. You're in my belly, and we are floating this river. You and me, kid, and your daddy. There he is. I'll show you this later. But here you are in the belly.
So he's at 5 weeks now. So he hasn't, obviously, we haven't showed him that yet, but we're looking forward to showing.
I mean, soon enough you have him in the stroller, and even then, like when we had both Charlotte and Caroline when they were babies, and you have to get out of the house just for your own sanity, obviously. But having them out in the little stroller and just you go around the little trail or whatever, they can look up and see everything. Like that's all part of it as well. It's it's just good for you to be outside.
We got him out for the first time on Valentine's Day. Actually, we got out for a walk. Went to a little trail down in Convict. I guess you'd call the area Convict Hill, sort of West William Cannon and Mopac right there. And there's a little trail we walked around, and we saw a whole bunch of the fallen trees and stuff from the ice freeze. Most of them had been dragged out of the way of the path, so it was kind of good. We walked for a bit and we ended up at a Mexican restaurant, which was cool.
It happens if you live here.
A very, very family-oriented restaurant too. Huge playground full of screaming kids and a bunch of adults out for a bunch of parents out for Valentine's Day. So we felt very at home and included. And people were finding out like, oh, this is your first time out of the house? Oh, welcome. This place is a gold mine. Instead, you just let them go in the backyard. Here it's all fenced. They can't get out. It's perfect. And we had the dogs in there as well. And the big dog, the big Rook, he the first time I've ever seen him scare the crap out of kids. There's 2 different kids. He just standing there minding his own business in his Mickey Mouse red top, and Rook just didn't go at him. He just stood where he was about 10 feet from him and went, oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. And the kid went white. And his parents didn't give a shit. That was the best thing. They were fine. Oh, is that your first baby? Oh yeah, he's our third. We don't care anymore. So
you can battle them, it's fine. Yeah.
That element of have you noticed yourself becoming more desensitized to the dangers of Caroline maybe in the woods as she's a bit older, or do you feel differently towards Charlotte at the age she's at now in the woods than you did to Caroline at that same age?
Well, I took Charlotte walking around the trail, the place where we go, like that little trail that leads back to that hunting area or whatever. I took her out and she had fun too. Like she's at the age now, she's almost 2, to where she can walk around outside and have a good time.
Do you notice any difference in yourself in terms of anxiety or nervousness about
No, I
Charlotte?
was never really nervous about it. Just because that it's good, even if you like say like something minimally bad happens, they fall down or whatever, they poke themselves with a limb or whatever. It was like, oh, that's part of being in the woods. Like it's a little bit of like the discomfort, is part of what you do when you go camping, obviously, or you're outside. And so, but with Caroline, with her being her age now, and she's able and capable, she's gone camping overnight, and is really enjoyed it. And so she understands what it means to go camping, and it's something that like she looks forward to. So so yeah, it's something that I would enjoy doing a lot more than I'm able to at the moment. And same for you, obviously. Like when you have a newborn, you have to kind of
Counting the days,
yeah, you have a little bit of time, but once you get to a comfortable spot, there's no reason you can't just like take your kid with you when you go camping. It's the same thing. It's what people did all the time. On the Oregon Trail, they weren't like, oh yeah, these babies, it's too cold outside or whatever. They said chunk them on top and hope it doesn't die of dysentery or whatever.
Hopefully it doesn't drown in everybody's diarrhea.
Yeah.
No, who was the lady who was really famous on the Oregon Trail, and she had a baby on the Lewis and Clark journey, didn't she?
I don't know.
She was one of the absolute badasses that kind of helped them actually survive the whole thing.
Well, yeah, that should be another like segment, I think. Is there's plenty of really badass people that just did cool nature shit or cool exploring type shit. Those people are very, they're known, they're recorded and everything else like that, but people would more or less not really know about them and know about the things that they did and shit like that. People that discovered places or made the first trips. Obviously Lewis and Clark went all the way across.
There's a couple, and there's some amazing stories from my country
in
that vein of when the whites got there and decided, well, let's go and check out what's around. Let's go and see what's in the middle. Oh shit, 25 miles from the coast. This is completely uninhabitable. Right, let's get back to the coast. No, that's not that way. Oh shit. Well, we'd better eat each other's toes. So many, it's like every story is Lewis and Clark, but they don't make it because they're idiots and don't listen to the natives.
That snake will bite you, and then you'll die. Like, oh, this brown-skinned fellow, what does he know about anything? And then they die.
Just even more ridiculous than that. Like even more like if the brown person or the black person told me don't go near that snake, I'd better go and French kiss that snake. Because otherwise, I might be seen to be listening to the native. My country is unbelievably embarrassing when it comes to their native peoples, just like America is.
Yep.
And they were classified as fauna until 1967. They are currently negotiating rewriting the Constitution to include the fact that they never ceded sovereignty at all to anyone, any group of 180 something, I think, different nations within Australia. Our native people and American native people are very, very similar in the way that the country was kind of structured. There was some nomadic and some not.
Yeah.
They all were different, separate, proud, substantial, and ongoing nations who were 100% doing just fucking fine until
yeah.
You guys ever heard of a Caucasian? Well, it's a hell of a cocktail. The rest of it, not so much. But hello, we're here now. Deal with this shit. So there's a lot of talk right now in Australia because there's a voice to Parliament being discussed for the native people. So that might be something we could touch on too, is the native cultures in different areas.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be a fun segment. Probably not fun. Will probably be
Well,
devastating.
there's probably plenty of Native American tie-ins to some of the state park type stuff, like very specifically toward, like, you know, either
there's usually a lovely whitewashed story at the
yeah,
entrance
exactly,
to the parks,
yeah.
talking about how, oh yeah, there were some people that lived here. They were really cool about it when we showed up, and they told us where we should put the sign. They thought we should put the sign here, and it was a really good spot to put the sign. And then they just moved on and went somewhere else.
Yeah.
No one really knows where they went.
But we gave them 12 beads.
The one at Jacob's Well here in the hill country is particularly egregious.
Yeah, little plaque.
Get a photo next time I'm there and bring it in. But it is when it was like I started to read it and just went, wow.
Yeah.
It literally said nobody knows where they went or something to that effect. Records don't show where they moved on to, and it's like, that's because there weren't any left.
Yeah, they threw the rest to the bottom of the fucking well. After they gave them smallpox or whatever the fuck.
Oh Jesus! So there probably is there's an amount of responsibility, I think, as white guys doing an outdoor podcast that both come from areas where the outdoors has been completely stolen.
Yeah.
But we should probably talk about what it used to be like, and maybe if we're looking at people from history, maybe let's talk about some people who, if we can find them, that didn't get talked about quite so much. I was listening. Have you ever listened to the Bear Grease podcast? It's on the Meat Eater network. It's Clay Newcomb, this absolute nutter from Arkansas. He's a bear hunter who hunts on mules from like northwest.
I remember him from one of the episodes.
Yeah. And he's fantastic. He seems like the exact opposite of me. You know, he's he's a strongly religious guy. He's pretty conservative. But he hunts bears on mules, and I love it. I want to listen to him talk all day. He's fantastic. And his son, actually talking about kids in the woods, one of the things I really thought was interesting, he talked about his son's first bear hunt. The tradition is that he just went and left. His son's name is Bear, and went and left Bear in the woods for 2 days to hunt bears. And you know, he had a what do you call the GPS, a point me or whatever you call it. If he got into trouble, I think he wasn't completely out of range or anything, but he was left to his own devices. I think he was in his late teens, 17, 16, 17, something like that. And it was just, and he was describing it on his podcast about how it was while he was gone. He was recording the podcast while Bear was out there, you know, and he was choking up as a dad, you know. He's like, he's out there and he's doing his first bear hunt solo and all this stuff. And I was just like, that's got to go against some parenting instincts. There's got to be some worrying you have to really fight down. Now that I've got like the little boy, and it's like the amount of worry that straight away begins to happen. Mm-hmm. That's got to go against some instincts. I thought that was interesting in terms of kids in the woods, is the idea of just ditching your kid in the woods and go and figure it out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and even touching back to what we were talking about before about the native cultures and stuff like that, that's all born out of that. There's like challenge. It's like, well, you're going to become a man or to partake in certain things as a part of the tribe or whatever else it is, you have to go out and kill something and bring it back, which is essentially what that is.
Yeah.
But you know, when we did it, when like we were in scouts or whatever else like that, and the adults would let us, you know, like go off and like find a place and just like set up, and you know, we were supervised, but they knew that we were, you know, in an area as like part of getting merit badged and stuff like that. That's a very fractional part of what, you know, sort of they used to do or whatever else it is. But like that's very appealing to me. Like even now, just drop me in wherever and I'll like do whatever and just like sort of exist and survive. Like I think that is underrated in terms of being sort of challenged to just do the basic stuff that you need to just kind of, you know, reconnect with all the parts of what makes a human being, which is you need shelter, you need food, and you need water. What is that? How do you acquire all those things and make sure that you're comfortable enough to thrive in any situation when you're outdoors, which I think is very cool and appealing to me. But yeah, the idea of just dropping your kid off and being like, cool, good luck, is probably a little bit challenging too.
Yeah, there was that struck me. It stuck with me, that episode. I thought it was cool. I mean, shout out to the Bear Grease podcast, because I think it's a really cool thing. It introduces me to a culture like the Arkansas hunting community that I have no idea about. It's so foreign to where I come from, and I love listening to it. I love it, and I mean, it's part of the Meat Eater, the bigger network that they have, but it's a lot more down homey. Like he was talking about Tecumseh the other day. Right. That's how I got to him, was speaking about the native peoples, and his 3-part series about Tecumseh is amazing.
Yeah.
The way he talks about, I didn't know anything about Tecumseh and about the way he fought. Like he rallied tribes together and brought nations together to fight for the rights of the original landowners, or the First Nations people, and then to call white people out on the amount of going back on the deal that they did straight away as soon as they made immediately. And then he fought with the British in the War of 1812. Coming down from Canada, and he's one of the heroes. Like the way that Bear Grease describes it is that he's one of the rare American heroes who lost.
Yeah,
it's the English didn't win the War of 1812, and Tecumseh in the Tecumseh was Shawnee, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I know he said Pawnee then, but that's because I was explaining Parks and Rec to my mum earlier. I think it was Shawnee, and they didn't really win any of the conflicts either, but they fought for it enough, and their language survives now. There's less than 1,000 people speak it, but they've survived in some way, which is so it's interesting that he's an American hero who fought against America and also lost.
Yeah.
So it's it's almost like a Confederate statue in some ways. But let's not go into that. Let's not go into that 57 minutes into a podcast.
Yeah, that's dangerous talk with you and me. As soon as we get into that, the sort of the vitriol meters are engaged, go.
Yeah, well, I mean, we do want this to go viral, so we've got to throw out a little bit of we've got to get a little Grimes into this. We've got to keep it right on the edge to where Will McLean will share it, but not necessarily it'll test whether he watched it all the way to the end. Speaking of which, it has been the best part of an hour.
Yeah.
I think we can probably sign this off for now. I think this is a good start. I think we've got some ideas of where to go from now. I think if anybody's listening to this, go ahead and throw in ideas, throw in comments, talk about the outdoors. Let's get this started. We'd love this to become a wider conversation about the outdoors in Texas. I think the small amount of public lands we have in Texas, the best chance we have to maximize that and to even expand it if possible is to have more people talking about it and knowing about it, so that the bastards can't steal any more of it from us.
Yeah.
So
they coming.
They definitely want it. They definitely
do not give one single wet rat fuck about this stuff, and unless we use it and advocate for it, they will take everything. I firmly believe that. We'll
dive deeper into who they are in other episodes. So for right now, we'll keep this one as a positive one because we have a new state park this year. That's going to be fun. Well, Will, thank you very much, and we will speak again. I don't know. Do we want to put a deadline on the next one? Do we want to try to?
I don't know if we can yet. I'd say that it's a TBD soon.
Yeah, I think as soon as possible, but we'll leave it open as to how long that is.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Sweet.
Thanks, mate.
Peace, bro.
We need two things before we sign off. We need a sign off, and we
need a sign off and a what?
And are we good with Where in the Woods? Is Where in the Woods the name of this podcast, or do you have a better idea?
Where in the woods? Where in the woods?
Where in the woods? Right now I'm spelling it on the file WHERE, obviously. But it could be where in the woods, as in the two of us are in the woods, although we're both in a very indoor setting for the first one. I think we might need to rectify that at some point.
Yeah. At least have a plant right here.
Yeah, at least some kind of foliage, something natural.
No, I like it. I think it's good. I think it tracks. It's good.
We're in the woods. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a sign off? Something to leave with, something to leave in people's mouths. Leave in their ears.
Did you say in their mouth?
Well, leave a taste in their mouth. What kind of taste do you want to leave?
This is the worst way to close this.
That's the perfect sign off, and I'm going to end it right there.
Yeah, hopefully we left a good taste in your mouth.
Yep, and that'll either mean it goes viral or we're immediately cancelled. Thank you, Will. Stop the share, but not the Zoom. I don't know how to stop the Zoom. Did I end it?